Hi, I'm Aaron Heiser, Maker's Leather Supply, and in this video we're going to talk about a few different things. The first thing we're going to do is case some leather, get it ready for tooling. Then we're going to talk about some wing dividers and what they can do for you. And then we're going to do some basket stamping and border stamping. We're going to do all that on the same project because they all just kind of go together. So, here we go. So here I have my piece of leather cut out from the video, the previous video, which is this is the back to the business card wallet. Okay, I am going to end up basket stamping this this piece of leather, but first I have to prepare it to do that. Okay, here in this bottle here, I just have regular old water. Okay, depending on, or well, not really, depending. Basically, any old tap water will do. If you just live in, you know, some terrible, terrible region that just has terrible, terrible water, you may not want to use your tap water, but basically, this is just regular old tap water. And all I'm going to do is give this a spray. Okay? Now, this is called casing the leather. Okay? And there's a million different ways to do it. However, your time is precious because you're sitting in a classroom environment and you don't have a lot of time. There are people that to case their leather, they completely soak it with water and then they let it almost dry to where most of the moisture content's inside the leather, and then they wrap it up and stick it in the refrigerator overnight and all this craziness. And don't get me wrong, that's an awesome way to do this. However, I personally don't do that very much at all because I don't know when I'm going to have time to tool something tomorrow. I do know that right now I have time to tool something. So I take it, I get it a little bit wet, okay? I don't oversaturate the leather. If you get it too wet, it's just gonna get all mushy and terrible. A lot of people will sit there and try to stamp in their leather and their impressions aren't nice and clean, so they're like, oh, I need more water. No, that is probably not the case. If your leather looks dry, but it feels cool to the touch, then it is good to go. It's ready, it is toolable, okay? If it looks all wet, then it is too wet, all right? So, I put that little bit of water on here, and while it sets up, I'm gonna put tape on the back of my leather, okay? And what this is gonna do, since I'm basket stamping this leather's gonna wanna stretch a lot, okay? Now, I don't want it to stretch because as it stretches, it's going to deform a little bit, and also it's going to be kind of bowl shaped, like the edges are going to come up and it's just going to be harder to tool when it's wobbling around like a bowl. So I'm going to use some masking tape here on the back. There's lots of different tapes that can work, but the biggest thing is when I pull this tape off, I don't want to have sticky residue on the back of my leather. That will hinder my project quite a bit. Okay, so I don't want to do that. So I'm just using regular old masking tape. Unfortunately, this doesn't go quite all the way across, but that very, very edge right there that's not covered, I'm not worried about because we're going to put a big wide border on here. Okay, I am going to cut off the edge of this tape because I don't want it sticking to my hand every time I move. It just gets annoying. Okay. There we go. The next tool we're going to talk about is called a pair of wing dividers. All right, and I'm looking to see somewhere in my shop I have the exact same pair that your school program may have purchased, but I don't see them, so I'm gonna have to, whoop, there they are. Here they are, right here. Looks like a compass that you'd use in geometry class, right, to draw circles. Okay, now, I use this to set up things like my stitch line or borders or things like that. Okay, and in this case, we're going to use it for a border. We will use it later when we go to sew this project together to do a stitch line. But for now, I'm doing a border. Okay, so I've got me a nice wide, this is about 3/8 of an inch wide. Okay, I want to make it nice and wide because I still have to put a stitch line inside my border. All right. And I'll just hang one edge of it off of the edge of the leather and use the other edge to draw on this leather. when I get to a corner, I want to make sure I'm not kind of, whoops, overrun that corner. See what happened there is I accidentally came up onto the leather with my one that should hang over the side. So, but I want to make sure I don't go past where the next part of the line will be. Sometimes my words don't go as well as just showing on video, but I still have to narrate, right? About like that. Okay? All right. The next thing I need to do is cut that border in. All right? So this is where a swivel knife comes in handy. Now I will do another video that just talks about the swivel knife. So search for that one if you need to. But right here, I'll give you a real quick down and dirty. I am going to strop my swivel knife. Using, it's just a piece of leather with some like polishing compound on it, okay? The green or the white work best for me, but honestly, any color of polishing compound is fine. So, I'm gonna use my swivel knife and I'm gonna cut that border in, okay? Now, when I cut this line, it helps me to keep my pinky on the edge of the leather, and that way when I'm pulling that swivel knife down, I stay in a pretty straight line, and I'm able to follow the line that's drawn for me pretty easily. I almost could do it without a drawn line, but that doesn't help you learn. So, okay, and then I am kind of turning the knife a little bit, making those corners just a tiny bit round. I don't want them totally square because the edge of the project isn't totally square. So there we go. That's about as easy of a line as you can cut with a swivel knife when you don't have to turn and go, you know, do a bunch of swoops and turns and stuff like that. Now, the next thing I'm going to do is I'm going to basket weave this project, okay? I'm going to get my cutting board out of the way because I have basket weave right there on that. This desk has a granite countertop. I know what you see is my cutting mat on top of the granite, but this entire table I'm using is a big slab of granite. I highly recommend that you tool on something like a piece of granite, something really hard that will accept the your stamp without flexing or bending. Looking for just a regular old basket weave stamp. Now I found one. Okay, so to basket weave, I need to start with a guideline, okay? Basket weaving, a lot of people will take it and just run it straight across their project, and honestly, that's just not the best way to do it. It doesn't look as nice as if you give it a little bit of an angle, okay? So what we're gonna do here is take a ruler, and I'm going to just find me an arbitrary angle. It's not anything, I don't know, that's probably about a 45-degree angle. All right, and I'm just gonna take any old sharp instrument I got laying around. This is a scratch awl, and I'm gonna mark me a line. Okay, so that is the line I will follow as I basket weave. All of my basket weaving will be like that. Now, one thing I like to do when I'm making something like this is I have a stamp here that has my logo and all that stuff on it. And I like to go ahead and put it on here now because I'm going to have to basket stamp around it, okay? Now, when you're basket stamping, if you're wanting to go around an object, it's very, very difficult to make the stamp match up on the other side. So I'm gonna put this thing so close to the bottom down here that I don't have to make it match up on the other side. I can just kind of go down this side, and then it'll run into what the border stamp that we're gonna do here in a little while. I do wanna make sure that this is centered, pretty close. And I wanna make sure it's straight up and down. Now I'm gonna give it a couple of good whacks with my big maul here without hitting my camera. There we go. That's it. Now, there is a border that I'm going to put around the outside of this entire project, and I'm going to take that same border stamp and go around my my logo there as well, but I don't want to do it right now. I want to do that pretty much last, okay? So we're gonna start basket stamping. What I'm gonna do is, here's the shape of the basket stamp right here. Okay, I'm gonna take the long sides here, and I'm gonna put it right up against that line. I'm gonna start not all the way at the very edge over here, but pretty close. Unfortunately, my thumb is in the way. But anyway, after I hit it, you'll see. There we go. So again, I put it right along that line, and I'm almost touching the wall over here, the border that we drew, but not quite. Now, I'm gonna turn that piece over, and I'm gonna overlap that stamp just a little bit where the legs overlap, but I'm on the opposite side of the line. I know you can't see it right this second, but just a second you will be able to. Just like that. Okay, so those legs are overlapping right, let me get a pointy thing here. The legs are overlapping right here, but everything else is just gonna follow that line. And I'm gonna keep doing that over and over and over until I have a long line that goes all the way across my project. So there's one side of the line. Other side of the line. And we're just gonna keep doing it. Okay, so I'm gonna keep doing that, and I'm gonna get all the way to the other end there, and I'm just gonna make this video look like I'm doing it really, really fast, so I'm not gonna talk while I do it. Okay, so here I am at the very end, but as you can see, I've got a lot of space there between that last stamp and the edge. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to take the stamp, I'm going to put it on there, and I'm going to rock it the direction where I have more room. Because when I hit it, I don't want the impression of the stamp to go out over the border. Okay, so I'm going to place it very lightly on there. I'm going to tilt it back away from it, from the border, and give it some taps. And then see? Now it fades out right there on the edge. Okay, that's the hard part. You've got to make sure that you stay in a very straight line as you do your first line, and that will set you up for success for everything else you're about to do. Because now all you have to do is go back in between every stamp and give it another hit. And again, you got to keep it nice and straight, because once you start getting off your straight path, it's very, very difficult to make it look right and get back on your path. Okay, this takes a lot of practice. I've been doing leatherwork a long time, and honestly, I don't have all the practice I need doing like basket weave and geometric stamps. I'm not really that great at it. I can make something, you know, passable. But there's guys out there that can take and just do this so fast and so straight and so perfect every time that it just makes me sick. Okay, so there we go. Once again, I'm gonna make it look like I'm doing this really, really fast, and I'm not gonna talk. And then I'll stop when we get to that maker's mark and show you how we'll go around it. Okay, so here we are. My next line is going to go over my maker's mark there. Okay, so what I'm going to do is let me stamp down to it. Now, here we are. This next one will kind of interfere with it. So what I want to do is take my stamp, and just like the border, I'm going to kind of lean it away from my maker's mark just a little bit. And then this one right here is, I'm going to lean it pretty hard away from my maker's mark so that I can get that solid line right there. And then we're just going to continue on. Now, I'm just going to go ahead and place the last few stamps down here on this side of my maker's mark, and this side of it will be done. When I get down here to this very end, I just take and keep my line going, okay? And that's it. That's all I need. My border stamp is going to take care of the rest of that. Okay? So up here, I'm going to keep going. Now, while you're doing all this, you need to make sure that your leather still feels kind of cool to the touch. Okay, as it dries out, these impressions will look different. They won't be as deep, they won't be as crisp, stuff like that. So you just got to keep checking your moisture content. As long as it feels cold or cool to the touch, it's still wet enough to work with. Once it doesn't feel cool to the touch anymore, one very, very light spray or pass with a little sponge that isn't completely saturated with leather is all it'll take. Okay, you're just re-wetting it. You're not getting a ton of water on it, because if you get a bunch of water on it, then you have to wait for it to be right again so that you can use it. Okay. All right, so I'm going to continue going around the rest of this, and when we come back, this entire piece will have the basket weave on it. Alrighty, so we'll see you in a minute. Alright, so here we are. We are now basket weaved. Again, if you pay attention, I didn't go over the border anywhere, and I stopped a little bit away from the border. We're going to go back now and do our border work. And anywhere that maybe I stopped too far from the border, we can always go back and kind of fill that little space in. But I think I got pretty close on just about everything I need to. So, first thing I want to do with my border is I want to bevel it. Alright? You don't necessarily have to, especially depending on what kind of border stamp you're using, but I like to. It's my way of doing things. Okay? So I'm just going to use my beveler and go around it. Okay? It's a tiny little detail. It doesn't add that much, but what it does is it pushes that edge down under the border, kind of makes it look like the border's sitting on top of it. Okay, this is a beveler stamp right here. I will do other videos that explain this stamp, but basically it's got like a roof pitch to it, and you put the high side of it up against your line and give it a tap and move it along your line. Okay. It requires a lot of practice to get to be able to walk it like I am right now, and it's okay in the beginning to take it, give it a little tap, move it, give it a little tap, take it, give it a little tap. Okay, everybody starts out that way. I understand. Again, after years of doing this, I've been able to just kind of walk it along here like I am here. When you are tap and moving, you know, tap, move, you don't want to move the entire width of the tool. Only move like half the width of the tool. Otherwise, you're gonna see the edges where you hit that tool every individual time. Okay, so I'll show you what that looks like. All right, so I'm gonna give it a hit. Then I'm gonna move it the whole width of the tool and hit it again. And I didn't really do a good job, but there is a little spot in between where those two tools were that it's not beveled very well. Okay, so you have to go back and you have to hit that little spot down too, so it just looks like one smooth long operation all the way across. Okay, so I'm going to do the rest of this really, really fast, and then we're going to move on to our border stamp. Alright, there we go. The entire border has been beveled, and that's going to look really nice once I get my border stamp in it. Now, I have every fancy border stamp you can imagine. I've been collecting tools for a long, long time. So, all that to say, my favorite border stamp is still the old school camouflage stamp. Let me see if I can get to focus on this thing. Okay, it looks like a little sunrise type, sunburst type thing. And it's super easy to use as a border stamp. You put the the half moon shape, the 2 points of the moon up against your edge, your border, give it a hit. See? Now, one looks kind of dumb, but when you do a bunch of them, it creates a really nice border around your basket weave. If you basket weave without a border, then it just kind of looks like your basket weave disappears and it doesn't look finished. I see a lot of beginners on social media that just basket weave and then they don't have any kind of definitive line or anything like that at the end of their weave. They just kind of stop. And I get it, they're beginners and they don't know that that's not, or that there's better ways to do it. But there you go, one complete side is bordered. All right. Now, around my maker stamp, I just kind of take this thing and draw a circle around it with my border stamp. And it really cleans it up and it kind of makes it look fancy and it's nice. Now down here at the bottom, just like I did with the basket stamp, I'm going to lean the border stamp away from the border so that I can get a little hit in there without going up over my edge. And then luckily these two kind of matched up here at the very end. And there we go. So there's the border stamp going around my maker's mark. Okay, now I'm just going to continue my border around the whole rest of everything. There we go. The tooling on this thing is pretty much done. I'm going to just check and see if there's anywhere that I didn't get close enough to my border, and I honestly don't really see anything I need to worry about. So yeah, so now I got to turn it over and pull my tape off the back. Actually no, I'm going to leave my tape on there because we're going to antique this piece, and if I leave the tape on there it'll keep the back clean when I'm slathering antique everywhere. But that's going to be the end of this video, where we have done, we cased the leather, we marked a border with our wing dividers, we drew a line on it, we basket weaved it, and we did a border stamp around it. So that's a lot for one video. On to the next one.